At 4:47 a.m., the city was a hush of blinking traffic lights and distant sirens. Maya Thompson walked briskly down 7th Avenue, her canvas sneakers soaked from a night rain. The Keene Corp Tower loomed above her 57 floors of steel, glass, and people who never noticed her, that was fine. She had grown used to invisibility. The lobby's marble floor glistened under her mop. Her reflection was faint, broken by streaks of fluorescent light. She liked this part of the morning, the quiet before the world became loud with power. Maya was 30, with steady hands and eyes that had memorized the sorrow of being underestimated. Her uniform bore no name tag. No one ever asked her name. She had a master's in environmental science, earned with distinction. No less, but the internships always seemed to go to better fits. The polite emails read, "We appreciate your application, but..." It didn't take long for reality to settle in. Loans piled high. Dreams thinned out. Cleaning paid the bills. That was the arithmetic of survival. Keene Corp's office floors were pristine, clinical design to erase evidence of struggle. Maya moved silently between desks, empty screens flickering in sleep mode. She wiped down a chrome sculpture in the CEO's corner suite, her breath fogging the polished surface. A photo on the wall showed Harlan Keene shaking hands with a senator. Both white, both smiling. She remembered their first encounter 2 years ago in the elevator. He had entered mid-call, barking orders. When he saw her, his voice dipped an octave into something performative. "Thank you for what you do," he had said, without looking at her. She remembered the weight of those words, not gratitude performance. He didn't even know her name. Since then, he passed her often, his Italian shoes tapping the tile rhythmically. Never a glance. She'd become part of the building furniture with a pulse. She never spoke during work hours. Not because she had nothing to say, but because she had learned the danger of saying too much. In silence, she was tolerated. In silence, she could think. And Maya thought a lot. She thought about systems, about who got chances and who got challenges, about how brilliance meant nothing if it came wrapped in brown skin and calloused hands. She thought about the irony of cleaning offices filled with men who couldn't spell her name, but decided her worth. She looked around Harlan's office again. Everything gleamed, untouched. But on his desk was something new, an envelope. White. Square, bold red letters across the front read, "If you read this, I'll give you my company." She froze. Her fingers hovered above it. The hallway lights clicked on. Maya stepped back, heart pounding. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed like thunder down the corridor. She looked once more at the envelope, and then turned to the window, eyes hardening. As the city began to stir, the envelope hadn't moved. It sat like a dare in the center of Harlan Keene's glass desks, dark white, perfectly square, those red letters almost glowing under the fluorescent lights. "If you read this, I'll give you my company." Maya stood frozen, mop still dripping onto the slate floor. The clock on the wall read 5:18 a.m. outside. The sky was lightening into bruised gray. She told herself it wasn't for her, probably a joke. Between executives, something theatrical for a board presentation. Still something about it felt ... personal, deliberate. Her hand hovered. She looked around. The suite was empty, silent, except for the distant hum of APFAC. She reached for the envelope. Slowly, the way someone might lift an object that could explode, her fingertips touched the seal. Then, a voice behind her. Curiosity. That's what separates winners from watchers. Maya's spine stiffened. She turned slowly. Harlan Keene stood in the doorway, suited, smiling, not kindly. She felt her stomach twist. Didn't mean to. She started, stepping back, but he waved her off, stepping inside. No. I wanted someone to find it. Just didn't expect it to be you. The way he said you dripped with something slicker than disdain. A playful cruelty. Maya stopped. There were no rules for this. There's no script for when the CEO catches you touching his personal mail. Pressed tight. Harlan walked over, picked up the envelope, and waved it in the air. It's a prompt. A game, you know? See who's bold enough to open it. Maya didn't respond. Her heart thudded in her ears. He tilted his head. "Well, did you read it?" she said quietly. "Then you win," he said with mock ceremony, placing the envelope back on the desk. "Congratulations, Ms. Maya," she said, not offering more. He smiled wider. "Maya, well, you read the magic words? Guess that makes you CEO." His laughter filled the room. It wasn't loud, but it was sharp. The sound of someone laughing at a joke that already drew blood. Maya kept her face still. Inside, shame curled hot around her ribs. He turned his back, opening a drawer as if she wasn't there anymore. "Don't take it so seriously," he said over his shoulder. "It's just a bit of fun. You'd be amazed how many people in this building would leap at that bait." Maya looked at the envelope again. The red letters seemed to mock her now. She stepped back, quietly gathering her cart, careful not to show the quake in her chest. Harlan was already on a call. "Yeah," she read it. "The cleaner. Can you believe that?" He chuckled. The door eased shut behind her. In the hallway, Maya paused. Her cheeks burned, but her hands were steady now. She hadn't asked for a test. She hadn't failed it either. And maybe, just maybe, that envelope had been meant for her. In ways he'd never understand. "Gentlemen," Harlan said, pacing before the long obsidian table, "let me tell you how I conducted a little experiment this week." The boardroom overlooked the skyline, floor-to-ceiling windows bathing the room in blue morning light. 13 men and 1 woman, all in tailored suits, sipped espresso and glanced up from their tablets as Harlan dropped the envelope on the center of the table. "Put this on my desk. If you read this, I'll give you my company." Wanted to see who'd bite. Murmurs stirred. Someone chuckled. "She did," Harlan said. "The cleaning lady, Maya." A pause. "You're kidding," muttered Evan Blake, VP of Finance. She opened it. Harlan grinned. I didn't even hesitate. Looked at it like it was a riddle from God. I walked in, caught her red-handed. Poor thing looked like she was about to melt into the floor. The table erupted in laughter. Even Judith legal counsel smirked, though her eyes didn't quite match the grin. "I mean," Harlan went on, "what kind of person sees that and believes it? Someone who thinks she deserves to be here? That's the problem with people nowadays. Everyone's got main character syndrome." He took a seat. At the head of the table, legs crossed, satisfied, Judith shifted slightly. "And what happens if word gets out?" Framing it as a test. It was harmless. Harlan waved her off. "Nobody got fired. Nobody got promoted either." More laughter. But outside, in the corridor where sound leaked through glass like a faint radio, Maya walked slowly past the boardroom, pushing her cart. The muffled echoes of laughter curled through the air like smoke. She didn't stop. Her shoes brushed against polished tile. She kept her head up, jaw clenched. Around her, office workers glanced, then glanced again. The whispers had begun. "Did you hear?" Apparently she thought it was real. I mean, why would she even open it? By lunch, the joke had traveled floors. It evolved like gossip always did. One version had her bursting into Harlan's office demanding a title. Another claimed she left a note saying she accepted. None were true. The truth didn't matter here. Stories did. Maya walked between desks and water coolers, moving like a shadow no one wanted to admit they saw. But her back remained straight, her silence deliberate. At 6:42 p.m., long after most had left, Maya stood alone in the empty break room, wiping counters that were already clean. Her reflection stared back from the microwave door still. Proud and wounded, a voice came from the hallway. "Hey," it said gently. "You all right?" She turned. It was Janice, the receptionist, with kind eyes and soft gray curls. Maya didn't answer. She just nodded once, then turned back to her reflection, hands stilling on the cloth. She knew the laughter wouldn't last forever, but the memory of being mocked, that would sit deep. It's like rust in the bone. Janice waited until Maya was done wiping the counter for the second time. She didn't rush her, just stood nearby, arms folded, leaning slightly on the break room doorway like someone who had learned the value of patience. "You know, Janice," said gently, "when I started here, they used to call me the front desk gal. Never my name. Took 3 years before Mr. Keene even made eye contact." Maya gave the faintest nod, but didn't speak. Janice continued. but I watched, listened. People forget you're there when you're quiet long enough. That's when they show you who they are. Maya set the cloth down. I didn't open that envelope because I thought he'd actually give me anything, she said, voice low and steady. I opened it because no one ever said I couldn't. Janice raised an eyebrow. Well, now, that's the truth, if I've ever heard it. The room felt warmer suddenly, like something had cracked open. Maya sat on a stool near the window. The skyline darkening outside, she wasn't trembling anymore. You know what the real joke is? She said. That he thinks this is just about a letter, a stunt. But it's not. It's about how easily they laugh at us, how small they expect us to stay. Janice's face softened. They don't see the years behind your eyes, Maya. They don't know the weight you carry. That's their loss. But it doesn't have to stay their secret. I'm not someone who talks, Maya said. Maybe it's time you start, Janice. Said dignity isn't about staying silent. It's about knowing your worth and speaking it. The words sat between them. Then Janice reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I wrote to HR once, she said. About a VP who called me sweetheart one too many times. They said they'd look into it. Nothing happened. But that letter made me feel whole again. Maya took the paper, ran her fingers over the edges. She didn't need to read it. She understood what it was. A line drawn in ink. Refusal. To disappear. That night, Maya didn't take the bus home. She walked. The city buzzed around her, but inside her chest was a quiet, fire-controlled but real. She replayed Harlan's smirk, the laughter behind the boardroom glass, the murmurs in the hallways. They weren't going away, but neither was she. By the time she reached her apartment, she had already begun to write mentally crafting sentences, weighing words, shaping what she wanted the world to know. She didn't want revenge. She wanted the truth to sit in rooms. Where power tried to hide it, the letter took shape over 3 nights. Maya wrote it sitting cross-legged on the worn carpet of her one-bedroom apartment. Beside a flickering lamp, her laptop humming faintly. She typed slowly, deliberately deleting, rephrasing, rewriting. Every word was chosen with the weight of history in mind. To those who find humor in our silence. To begin. She didn't name names. She didn't have to. The image was vivid enough. A cleaning woman baited with a note, mocked behind closed doors. This wasn't a game, she wrote. This was a message. Know your place. But I already do. And it's not behind a mop. It's inside every space where dignity is expected, even if not offered. She hit publish at 11:46 p.m. and went to bed with no expectations. By morning, the world had changed. The letter had spread, shared by an HR blog, then reposted by a workplace equity forum, and reshared by a journalist with 300,000 followers. By noon, the views had passed 500,000. By 5 o'clock, national outlets were quoting it under headlines like "Cleaning Woman Calls Out," "CEO's Cruel Experiment," an anonymous letter shines light on corporate elitism and racism. At Keen Corp, tension snapped taut like a pulled wire. The communications team scrambled into emergency meetings. Legal prepared statements. HR sent out vague internal emails. We are aware of recent allegations circulating online. But the employees already knew. Most had read the letter on their lunch break. A copy sat open on a junior designer's second monitor. Someone printed it out and pinned it inside the break room. Below the company's framed core values poster, in the elevator, 2 executives whispered, "It's her, Maya. I saw her last week near his office." She really wrote that? She tore him apart without even saying his name. Meanwhile, Harlan Keene leaned back in his leather chair and waved away the noise. Flash in the pan. He told the board over Zoom, "We let it blow over. If we chase it, we validate it. Trust me." But Judith, his legal counsel, didn't smile this time. "Dismissal is a dangerous PR strategy," she said. Harlan scoffed. "She's a janitor with a thesaurus. She's a janitor with a voice," Judith replied, "and people are listening." Harlan ended the call early. That evening, Maya stayed at work an hour later than usual. She could feel the shift in the air, not pity, but something quieter and sharper. Recognition. Janice found her in the stairwell, staring at the skyline. They read it, Janice said. I know. You sure you're ready for what comes next? No, Maya said honestly. But that's not the point. She looked out the window. A soft wind moved through the city. I didn't write that for them to like me, she said. I wrote it so I wouldn't disappear. And somewhere, buried in threads and retweets and comment sections, people began to share their own stories, small humiliations, microaggressions, the sharp edge of exclusion. They used her words as an anchor. One voice at the edge of silence had pulled 1,000 more into the light. The lights were hotter than she expected. Maya sat beneath them, palms resting on her lap, heart steady but loud in her chest. Across from her, framed by cameras and digital timers, was Olivia Noxanker of Morning Profile, known for sharp questions and sharper instincts. Maya wore a navy blouse Janice had helped her pick out. No jewelry, no makeup beyond a little powder, she insisted, on no stylist. I want to look like myself, she had said, and she did. The segment producer cued the countdown. Olivia leaned forward slightly. We're here this morning with Maya Thompson, she began, whose anonymous letter exploded across the internet last week and sparked a conversation about race, dignity, and workplace power. Maya, thank you. For being here, Maya nodded. Thank you for having me. Her voice was calm, not rehearsed, ash-lived. The first few questions were expected. What made her write it? Did she fear losing her job? How did she feel when the world started listening? Maya answered each one slowly with deliberate care. She didn't perform, didn't preach. She simply told the truth. I wasn't angry, she said. Not at first. I was humiliated. It's a quieter thing, but it stays with you longer. Olivia's brow furrowed. And what do you want now? Maya's eyes didn't flinch. I don't want his company, she said. I want change? A pause? What kind of change? The kind that starts with being seen, really seen, not just tolerated, not laughed at for daring to stand in the light. The control room grew still. When the interview ended, Olivia reached across and took Maya's hand. That was powerful, she said. You have no idea how many people needed to hear that. But Maya did. She felt it even before her phone buzzed with the first wave of messages. Within an hour, the clip was everywhere retweeted by activists, stitched by young creators, quoted in editorials. The line, I want change, not charity, trended before noon. One post read, I want to be like Maya when I walk into rooms where I don't belong. Another, she speaks with fire wrapped in grace. We see you, Maya. Maya read a few of them on her lunch break, sitting alone in the break room. Again, but this time, the silence felt different. Full, not empty. Even employees who had never spoken to her before offered quiet nods as they passed. One young woman from HR left a sticky note on her locker. Thank you for speaking. Some of us didn't know we could. Later that evening, she sat on her stoop, phone in hand, scrolling through the noise. A message arrived from an unknown number. I have something you should see. We need to talk. Maya stared at it, thumb hovering. The next step was coming, and this time she wouldn't be walking alone. The message blinked on Maya's screen again. I have something you should see. We need to talk. Arshay hesitated, then typed, Who is this? Seconds later, Ravi Prakash. Junior analyst, KinCorp. You opened the door. I want to help. They met too. Days later, in the back booth of a small diner, tucked between a dry cleaner and a shuttered bookstore. Ravi was young, 24, maybe his tie loosened, fingers tapping nervously at a chipped coffee mug. I've been at KindCorp 18 months, he said. And I've seen things, hiring panels with no people of color, black applicants. Dismissed as not the right culture fit, pay gaps wide enough to drive a truck through. I have emails, spreadsheets, HR meeting notes. Maya listened without interrupting. This place is built on silence, Ravi added, but your letter cracked something open. He slid a flash drive across the table. I'm not brave like you, he said, but maybe this helps. Maya took it, tucking it into her coat pocket like a relic. The days that followed felt like tremors before an earthquake. One leak turned into 5, then 10. Anonymous employees sent stories to journalists, watchdog groups, even Maya directly stories of promotion ceilings. Exit interviews that were buried, comments made behind closed doors, the press seized it. King Corp accused of systemic bias after viral letter former employee. I was told my afro was unprofessional at the office. Things changed. The laughter had stopped. Executives wore tight expressions, and an air of calculation clung to every hallway. Inside boardrooms, walls once used to conceal were now echoing their own betrayals. Harlan, still unmoved in public, insisted it was overblown. We'll weather this, he told the board. But behind his confident facade, cracks were forming. Meanwhile, Maya kept cleaning, but she also started meeting with lawyers, organizers, with whistleblowers like Ravi who refused to be silent. Anymore, she wasn't at war. She was uncovering truth, and truth, once spoken aloud, cannot be shoved back into silence. The courtroom was smaller than Maya imagined. No sweeping drama, just pale walls, wooden benches, and a judge whose robe looked heavier than his gaze. But the air inside buzzed with tension.
All right.
Journalists lined the back row. Former Keen Corp employees sat in silence, hands folded tightly in their laps. On Maya's side of the gallery, Janice and Ravi sat together, quiet pillars of support. At the defense table, Harlan Keene adjusted his cufflinks. He looked tired, not undone, weathered in a way wealth couldn't hide. Maya sat beside her attorney, Grace Olmsted. Grace was composed, sharpened, her braided bun wrapped tightly at the nape of her neck. She radiated precision. Like every word she'd ever spoken had been measured twice. Harlan's legal team stood first, offering a motion to resolve the dispute amicably and without public harm. Translation: money. They slid the envelope across to Grace with a practiced smile. Maya didn't look at it. Grace opened it, glanced at the sum, then placed it face down. She stood, her heels clicking against tile. Your Honor, she began, my client has been offered a substantial financial settlement. But what Kind Corp is asking for in return is silence. Clean slate for them and a locked mouth for her. Murmurs rippled through the room. Grace continued. This is not about revenge. It's about recognition, acknowledgement of harm done. In a system that mocked, then dismissed, then offered to bury its guilt in cash. The judge looked toward Maya. Ms. Thompson, he said, are you rejecting this settlement? Maya stood. Her voice was soft but unshakable. Yes, Your Honor. I am. He tilted his head. Would you like to state why? She took a breath. Because what I want can't be bought, she said. I want accountability. I want people like me to stop being jokes in boardrooms. And I want the next girl who walks into a job interview with braids and brilliance to be seen as qualified, not as a risk. She paused. I don't want a check. I want change. The silence in the courtroom was deep. Even Harlan looked away. Later, outside on the courthouse steps, microphones swarmed. Grace shielded Maya as best she could, but one reporter managed to ask, so what's next for you, Ms. Thompson? Maya didn't hesitate. I'm not done yet, she said. The cameras flashed, and somewhere deep in Keen Corp headquarters, resignation letter was being quietly drafted. 6 months later, the name on the office door read, Clean Site Inc. The space wasn't flashy. It sat on the 3rd floor of a modest brick building just outside downtown. No marble lobby, no private elevator. But it was bright, clean, and alive with purpose. Inside, Maya stood by the whiteboard, marker in hand, outlining the final steps of their second corporate training program, from optics to equity, real inclusion practices. Janice typed notes at the shared desk, glasses perched on her nose. Her eyes lit with pride. Ravi's in the conference room with a new client, Janice said, and he brought muffins. Again, Maya smiled. He's trying to win employee of the century, Janice chuckled. He's earned it. Clean Site wasn't just a business. It was a blueprint for reimagining what work could look like: dignity-based cleaning services paired with corporate consulting on ethical hiring, racial equity, and inclusive practices. They offered workshops and wrote policy templates. Hired formerly overlooked candidates, trained them in business development, and paid above living wage. And companies were listening. Some out of guilt, others out of fear, but more and more came out of curiosity and stayed for the transformation. Maya had become a reluctant icon. Harvard Business School featured her story in a case study titled Voice at the Margin, Leadership Born from Disrespect. A documentary was in the works. Invitations poured in, keynotes, panels, roundtables. But Maya kept her mornings for herself. She still arrived early, still walked the quiet streets. Not because she had to, but because that hour of silence was hers, unclaimed, undisturbed. One day, she passed the mirrored glass of KeenCorp Tower. She paused. New leadership, new slogans, but the same walls. She didn't need revenge. Had built something better. Her reflection stared back, shoulders squared, face calm. A woman who'd once been tested like a joke, now reshaping the very structures that had tried to silence her. From behind her, Ravi called out, "Maya, you coming? They're ready for you." She turned, nodded, and stepped away from the glass. There was still work to do. The sky was low and silver when Maya walked past KeenCorp Tower again. It was colder, now lit autumn. Glass building loomed as it always had, unbothered by seasons, its windows reflecting a world it rarely absorbed. She paused outside the lobby, watching people stream in with steaming cups and heavy coats. Badges swinging from lanyards. The reception desk was new. The receptionist was black. Maya noted the change, but didn't stop to applaud it. She had somewhere to be. She turned down the street toward CleanSight's new headquarters, now on the top floor of a midtown Cope building. It wasn't grand, but it was wholly theirs. The morning staff meeting was about to start. She wanted to be there early to prep the new hiring toolkit they'd just launched. As she unlocked the office door, a small envelope fell from the stack of mail wedged in the frame. No name, no return address, just plain white. For a moment her breath caught. Her fingers hesitated, memory stirring like dust in sunlight. She opened it. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper. On it, in neat blue ink, were 10 words. "You were right. I didn't see you. I do now." No signature, no seal. But she didn't need one. She sat down quietly at her desk. The letter wasn't redemption. It wasn't enough. But it was something. Crack in the wall. She folded the page with care and placed it in the drawer beside her first badge from KeenCorp, the one that had said Contractor Temp Access. A reminder, not of where she started, but of what she chose not to remain. Just then, Ravi peeked his head into the office. "Everyone's ready. Want to kick it off?" Maya stood. "Let's do it." She stepped into the conference room where Janice, Ravi, and a dozen new team members sat in a semicircle, bright-eyed, notebooks open. At the far end, the screen displayed a new logo, the updated CleanSight seal, now expanded to include a training academy for marginalized entrepreneurs. Maya took her place at the front. This company didn't start with a business plan. She began. It started with a line on an envelope. Challenge meant to humiliate, but I chose to read it anyway. Not because I believed it, but because no one told me I couldn't. She looked around the room. What you build from disrespect matters. But what you do with power, that's where the real work begins. The room was still. Listening, Maya smiled. "You all belong here. And it's our job to make sure the next person walking in does too." As the team nodded and the meeting began, sunlight poured through the windows, catching the edges of the glass table. The whiteboard, the words she'd written that morning. Outside, the city moved on, and inside, the woman they once laughed at sat at the head of the table. This time, not in silence. This time, as CEO.